Hello, everybody. Welcome to our RedRaiders.com postgame show brought to you by University Medical Center, coming to you from Birmingham, Alabama, and the Birmingham Bowl, where on Saturday the University of South Florida Bulls take down Texas Tech 38-34 in a wild finish. A game that was very defensive-oriented for about 2.5 quarters, and then in the final quarter and a half, and particularly the final 5.5 minutes of the game, Carlos, just got crazy.
Yeah, I know you kind of mentioned it to me. It was 24-24 at one point, then obviously it got to the 38-34 type deal, and it was just a matter of just going back and forth. It was missed assignments on defense, whether that was USF leaving TJ Vasher in the corner of the end zone or a couple of plays where Texas Tech just allowed a couple of USF wide receivers to get right behind them, which is something you don't want to do that late in the game, but you have to like the fight that Tech had late on as Nick Shimanek led them to a go-ahead touchdown. Unfortunately, USF was just able to get that last one there for.
Yeah, it was 24-24 midway through the fourth quarter, and then to recap the sequence, Tech gets a field goal from Clayton Hatfield to take a 27-24 lead. Red Raiders are kind of celebrating, sideline is alive, and then Quentin Flowers hits a 64-yard touchdown pass to Marquez Valdez-Scantling to put South Florida ahead 31-27. Red Raiders. First lead of the game for South Florida. That's right. Yes, that put South Florida ahead 31-27 with 4:26 left. The Bulls' lead was short-lived because somehow T.J. Vasher gets wide open in the end zone. Nick Shimanek hits him with a 25-yard touchdown pass, and the Red Raiders feel like they're going to get on the plane, go back to Lubbock, and be celebrating a bowl victory. That happened with 1 minute and 31 seconds left, and then both teams will remember for a long time then the final drive.
Correct.
Quentin Flowers ultimately wins it with a 26-yard touchdown pass to Tyree McCants. The 5'11", 235-pound slot receiver runs a wheel route, got behind DeMarcus Fields, catches it in stride. South Florida touchdown, Bulls win, but a play on that series that's going to be kind of infamous for Texas Tech fans is with 2nd and 10 at the Texas Tech 47-yard line. Quentin Flowers goes back to pass. Tony Jones giving chase. Flowers throws it into the Tech bench, and no call. Red Raiders wanted intentional grounding. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
And the next play is the touchdown.
And unfortunately, you can kind of look back at a previous play, too, whether or not they still would have scored a touchdown. But when Quentin Flowers actually ran in, I want to say it was about 2 or 3 touchdowns before that, ran in the touchdown to the right side of the end zone. Deshaun Johnson was held a little bit. Wide receiver put his hands up, kind of realized what he did. The refs didn't call that. Like I said, whether or not that would have been a touchdown ultimately, we're not sure. But, of course, that was just another missed call that, of course, fans were very, very vocal about on Twitter.
We asked Cliff Kingsbury after the game if he thought if he thought intentional grounding should have been called against Quentin Flowers on the play from the Tech 47-yard line late. He said it looked like he was vertical, but he said he would have to watch the film. He wasn't really going to give a strong opinion one way or the other on that one. Had he, if you do get that call, then they're backed up, I guess, about their 38-yard line. You lose it down. That about takes it to 3rd down. And then, of course, I said the touchdown came on the next play. Actually, then Flowers scrambled for 21 yards on the next play.
And clearly that was the biggest play of that game because Texas Tech, at least as you kind of mentioned to some of the players and the Coach Kingsbury at the press conference, they had held them in check for the most part in terms of big plays, and that was really one that really kind of hurt them late on in that game where you can't really let him loose, and he was able to get loose, and then that kind of set him up for that touchdown.
Well, I remember, well into the second half of this game, mid-third quarter, late third quarter, looking at Quentin Flowers' stats, and he had 23 yards rushing and a long gain of 7 yards, and you're thinking, man, if you had told David Gibbs and Cliff Kingsbury that would be the case, they would have been ecstatic.
Yeah.
And then you see why Quentin Flowers is the guy that he was built to be. Then he goes off and just kills you in the last quarter and a half of that game. He finishes with 106 yards and a touchdown rushing, 311 yards and 4 touchdowns passing. He broke the American Athletic Conference career record for total offense. And ultimately, Carlos, though, as crazy as the late stages of this game was, when you go back and look at this one, Texas Tech can can kick itself because ultimately it beat itself really in the first half.
Correct. Penalties that really kind of kept some USF drives going. And then I want to say the ultimate one, even though he finished with 2 touchdowns, those 2 interceptions early on, especially for Nick Shimanek, had a chance to go up, I want to say two scores. I want to say they're around at least a 10-yard line or so, for sure in the red zone. And he throws probably a pass that he would probably look back on and say, I probably shouldn't have thrown that. It was batted around twice, and then USF was able to intercept it and bring it back outside, and then of course they were able to score a touchdown, and that was ultimately what really kind of turned the tide, at least for me, in my opinion.
Well, I boiled it down kind of at halftime. Texas Tech, first half of this game, had the ball in USF territory, 6 separate series, and got 10 points.
Yep.
And that's, you could have been, I mean, this game could have been about like a 28-10 game,
yes,
halftime. But you had turnover on downs, you had the 2 interceptions that you alluded to, and a punt. That's right.
Yep.
Plus a field goal, plus a touchdown. I mean, 6 times you were in their territory, and 4 of those times you were at the 25-yard line or closer, and you get kind of minimal points out of it.
Not only that, but then those last 2 possessions, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were both interceptions, so certainly not a way that you want to go into halftime, which, as Charlie Strong alluded to in the press conference, getting that score tied at halftime was really kind of helpful for them. Even though Texas Tech was able to get started strong because they forced a fumble, they were able to get a touchdown. Ultimately, they kind of felt like they had a pretty good deal there, at least for USF, when they finally got that first lead and they were able to kind of close out. Yeah,
just, again, all sorts of this game kind of unfolding in stages, with the offense failing to be opportunistic in the first half. Then in the second half, the defense just gives you lights out play there in the third quarter with 2 Colin Hill causing 2 fumbles, Tech getting 2 fumble recoveries, getting 2 big 4th down stops deep in your own territory, 1 inside the 5-yard line, and you're thinking Tech is going to pull this one out. And then another game unfolded in the last 6 minutes of the game, and Texas Tech winds up again losing today, 38-34. South Florida back-to-back Birmingham Bowl champions. Last year they did it to South Carolina in overtime. Today to the Red Raiders in regulation. Charlie Strong saying afterward a few minutes ago that it's big for them getting a win over a Power 5 program. He said, well, I consider us a Power 5 program. We can match up with these teams. And now the Bulls finished 21-4 in 2 years, 11-2 last year, 10-2 this year. And Charlie Strong walked into a great situation after jumping out of the pressure, after being tossed out of the pressure cooker down in Austin. Some stats today for the Red Raiders: Justin Stockton in his final game carries 18 times for 103 yards. Nick Shimanek finishes 32 out of 59, 416 yards, 3 touchdowns, a couple of picks. Kiki QT had 11 catches, 187 yards, and a touchdown. The question is, was that the last game for Kiki?
And you asked him that straight out, the last question, and he said he wasn't ready to answer that at that point. Obviously, he was upset that they lost, that they're going to take this as another loss, obviously use it as momentum going into next year, learning lesson, but certainly that's going to be the one kind of cloud, if you will, that kind of sticks over the Texas Tech offseason, is whether or not Kiki QT comes back. Because if he does, certainly a huge boost for your offense. If he doesn't, you're going to have to find another guy that can kind of replace him, even though TJ Vasher is certainly a guy that has stepped up for them this year.
Yeah, but, man, he was just a playmaker.
Absolutely.
I think Texas Tech won that game, he would have been had a good opportunity to be MVP of this bowl game. Again, he finishes 11 catches, 187 yards, and a touchdown. I'm going to try this is dangerous. I'm going to try to do the math in my head now. So his season total, he'll finish up with 93 catches. He was going in today 1242, so he's at 1429, I believe. That's the highest single season total outside of Michael Crabtree's big year in 2007 in Tech history, and the touchdown. He did say before, he didn't want to answer the question, obviously, but he did say that he hasn't made his mind up
yet.
So.
Too.
So that I guess that'll about put a wrap on it today for us, and put a wrap on the season.
Well, I think that the best thing we can do right now is, I guess, we got 13 games in. I guess, what did you learn from this? I know everyone's going to look at the 6 wins, the 7 losses. Obviously, the loss is going to sting just because it's the last thing you remember. But the one thing you can take away is this defense is vastly improved. They create turnovers. They get the ball to the offense. It's just a matter of next year. They can find a quarterback that can obviously put a little bit of juice in that offense. I think they've got something going, because you got TJ Vasher coming back, you got Quan Shorts coming back, and then, of course, you got some other playmakers as well.
Trey King, who had a good game today.
Trey King as well, and then of course all the recruits that we'll eventually get to that they'll be bringing in. Of course, they had the early signees, but then of course you have National Signing Day on the first weekend of February. We'll talk about all that, but I think when you look at what you have coming back, you have a lot of defensive players coming back, a lot of offensive linemen coming back. I think at least the momentum is going up, at least for Texas Tech, in terms of what they have, at least from a personnel perspective.
So again, that'll put a capper on it for the 2017 season for Texas Tech. Red Raiders 38-34 loss today to South Florida in the Birmingham Bowl. We appreciate you watching our videos throughout the season and for reading our stuff. We'll have full coverage, post-game coverage coming up for you on RedRaiders.com and LubbockOnline.com. For our engineer producer, Mark Rogers, and for AJ Media sports writer Carlos Silva Jr., I'm Don Williams from the Avalanche-Journal. Everyone take care, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks again for joining us on the RedRaiders.com post-game show brought to you by University Medical Center.
And happy holidays.